Hi, friends. It's a marvelous Monday. Do you know why it's marvelous? It's because I get to be stamping here with you. So tonight I am continuing with the beginning stamping techniques and the watercoloring that we've been building on over the last 5 weeks. So this one will be my conclusion with the Dainty details. We'll be using that one again because I've got an upcoming class and I just wanted to finish showing you some of the details that we were working on last week. So we did the background last week and we're going to work on some of the details. So you can just see how I did it. You can experiment at home, but I just wanted to give you some little tips on some watercoloring of some details. These are small and so they're a little bit harder. So what I've done is I've drawn them to make a couple of the details a little bigger so you can get an idea of what it looks like. Okay, so Dainty Details has sold out. Hi, Judy. Thanks for joining me. So Dainty Details has sold out until March 17th, but it will be available again. But you don't want to miss out on that beautiful designer series paper that's free during celebration. So let's just show you real quick what that's about. So again, we're using the Dainty Delight bundle, which is the dies and stamps. So these are the cling stamps. They're the red rubber. And I'm going to be doing a class on this the 11th and 12th of February. So I'm hoping that you'll be able to join me for that. I'd love to have you. It's either in person or via Zoom, or I can just send you the PDF kit. So I'll be setting up that, if you want it just to go, I'll be setting that up on my website here this week. But it's in the mini catalog, page 55, and it has the stamps and the dies, beautiful. And then this is that designer series paper, Dainty Flowers, that it goes with. So you don't want to miss out on that. And then I was just going to show you real briefly some of the cards that we're going to be making this week or at that class. So this is one of them. And as you can tell, it's really pretty with the embossing folder. Actually, let me get more light. Maybe that didn't help. Okay, so it's got this beautiful embossing folder, a little bit of vellum. There's just a little bit of coloring with the stamping blends and a die cut item. So everything will be die cut except for the image. You'll be responsible for that yourself. And if you don't have the bundle, then you can use an image that you have. So anything would work. It's just really a pretty card. And then we'll be doing this one. This one is the designer series paper doing most of the work. We've just added a frame and some flowers. And of course, one of the sentiments from Dainty Details. And then one of the fun ones that we're going to be doing is a little bit of home decor. And these are little wooden crates. And so all of these items will be sent to you die cut. And so all you'll need is the stamp. And then, of course, I've splattered a little bit more than what the paper is, just to give it that watercolor. But this is, again, the watercolor paper or the paper that's from that designer series paper. It's already really pretty, but I added a few more splatter just to make sure that the colors coordinate. So you'd get everything to make this except for the sentiment. That's what you'll have to come up on your own. So you'll get the ribbon, the embellishments, all of these die cut pieces with my class. So I try to make it really easy, especially we've got a lot of people. Okay, so last week we worked on this background and we worked on the background of this card, plus we built this card. So what I want to show you is how I got that almost like a 3D look to my flower, because it looks like it's got its little face up to the sunshine. So let me lower my camera here a little bit, get a little closer to where I'm working and get it so that you can see this a little bit better. Now, instead of using these tiny little pieces, which are really hard to manage, what I'm going to show you is, like, this is the little half cone that comes with this. Let me take it out of the cellophane. Thank you, Judy. So let's let's get this close. Hopefully it'll, maybe it's not wanting to, there we go. So this is a little half cone piece that gets glued onto the daisy, and it's the same one that's here. And then I'm just I drew a daisy just so you can get an idea. And then this would be the full center of the daisy. Okay, so I added some little impressions because it's a lot like the die. The die has these impressions so that you can see kind of what the water does. Okay, so this piece was from this card. So again, we put together the watercolor background, then we can do put the pieces on above, but I'm just showing you some of the details. Okay, so let's start with the daisy. So I like to use my stamp pads because I like the just having the workspace, everything's there. I know some people don't like to dirty up their stamp pads, but I just find it's really handy. So I'm just going to add a little bit of water. And when I start watercoloring, I try to keep, so if I'm watercoloring on a full sheet, I try to keep it wet only where I plan to add color. So right now I'm just trying to get the whole surface wet. And just so you know, I used a Sharpie marker to draw this, so it's not going to bleed. Okay, so the whole surface is wet. And then I came in with more yellow. And I tend to, with flowers, want most of the color to be in the center because the tips of the flowers tend to get lit a little bit more with sun. And so you can see that it just kind of starts spreading on its own, and it starts spreading to the areas that were wet. And if I want it a little darker, then I just kind of keep adding more color. Now, if I don't have enough color, let me get this so that you can see what I'm doing. If I don't have enough color in my stamp pad, then what I will do is I will take my re-inker, which I use to re-ink my pad and get it so that it's up and going again, and I'll just add a couple dots, and then I'll get a much richer color. So you can see my little daisy is getting darker and darker in the middle. And so that's more or less how I made my daisies. Now I added a little bit of Cajun Craze to the middle of my daisy so that it would coordinate with my center. And I'll show you how I did the center in just a second. Okay, so one thing I did forget to do was bring a paper towel. Oh, there's one. Oh, good. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to add a little bit of water to this, but I need a little bit of Cajun Craze, a little darker. So I'm just going to add a dot. Okay, so again, I'm going to, this is the center, and let's just pretend it's these little tiny pieces, but I'm giving you something bigger that you can see. So I'm wetting the whole area up to the line, and then what I did is I just added more color at the bottom. I think I added a little bit too much too soon. The nice thing about watercoloring is you can take it away with, okay, I didn't show it to you right actually, so let's make another one. All right, so it'll look like a little gumdrop. And I'm going to put water everywhere except for where I want to leave a little highlight. Okay. So that's actually how I did these. And then I just kind of kept adding a little bit of color at the bottom. And it slowly just kind of kept bleeding up around. And then I just added a little bit more darkness around the bottom. And then as you can see, as it dries, it's going to be darker and darker. Okay, so starting again with the one that's a circle, I just did a little tiny circle, so I left a little place of highlight. Just making sure it's nice and wet so that the water just moves the color. So you just kind of keep adding the color where you want it. And you just think about the sunshine being up here, and then it ends up just having a really nice 3D effect. Okay, so that's that one, or those two. And then I can add a little bit more of this color to the daisy. And that way, when I had the little pieces that were die cut, they just layered onto it and it just had a little bit more color. So you can kind of see. It's a little messy when you get up close, but the results are really pretty. Okay. All right, let me just get rid of all this color. I don't want any of it on my... The thing about these water painters is they do kind of absorb the color into it, so you want to clean it off as best you can until the water comes out clear. Okay, so the next one we're going to use is we're going to do this little lavender, or I don't recall the other one. I think it was some sort of little flower. Okay, more kitty hair, bless their hearts. Okay, so again, I start with a real light wash, and I'm going to pull this out so that it doesn't get confusing. And I just color the whole thing with a light wash of watercolor. So I've just got a little bit of ink in here. And this is one of those that I'm going to want a little bit more color. So I'm going to add a little dot. Okay, and so you can see this card, I just continue to add more and more color in the middle. So I'm just going to add a tiny bit more color. And you'll see that it starts bleeding out to the edges. I wanted the flowers to still maintain that little bit of white at the tips. So you just kind of keep adding the color till you get the result you want. And then I'm adding the dark ink to the middle again, so you can kind of see. Maybe I should bring this back so you can kind of see it doesn't do as well against the dark background. So that's how I achieved these. I did the same thing for this flower here. So it just kind of gives you a little bit more information on how to do the flower. So again, start with a real light wash. And when you do your watercoloring, and then you can come back and just add a little bit of color. And if you use less water and just more ink, then you just kind of keep adding a little bit of color to the middle. and it still has the wash of the outside of the light that you at first brought in. Okay, so hi Marcy. Oh, you can't see the ink pad. Sorry about that. Can you see it now? Hopefully I haven't done all this off. Okay, so you don't always have to watercolor to get these really pretty flowers like I did. These flowers the same way, where I just started with a light wash of pink, and then I just kept putting a little bit more color in the middle and a little bit more until I got the 3D effect that I wanted. And that's why I continue to add it. But as you can see, so these flowers that we're going to make with my next class, let me close this so I don't end up with ink on everything. All right, so these flowers I watercolored, but these flowers I just cut out of the colored designer series paper. So this was a little bit of the sorry, the colors are not coming to me right off the top of my head, but I believe this was crushed curry. And then I used the soft suede for the center. Okay, so that's the daisy. And then this is old olive paper. And then I used, for the darker, I used the mossy meadow. Okay, so you get the same effects. Now I use Orchid Oasis ink for these, but this is the Orchid Oasis paper. So you can see it doesn't have quite the 3D effect, but it's still really pretty. So you can get the same effect without having to do the watercolor of all these details. So this one, I used a little bit of, I think it was the old olive ink, and I used the polished pink, but here I used the cardstock, and then I used the designer series paper to cut out these little flowers. So if you can see, these little flowers are cut from the same paper as this background. So you can still get a really pretty effect. I put like a little embellishment in the center to give it that a little bit of that 3D effect. So you can still get really pretty flowers without necessarily having to go through all the watercoloring. So, okay. So that's all I have to show you. This was a lot quicker than I thought it was going to go. Just goes way faster. So let me show you just real quick. So this is how I achieved the little sunflowers and the little center. And so I just left a little bit of color in the middle, or a little bit of light, to give it a 3D effect. So that way you end up with, it looks like the sunshine is on the top of the flower. And then this is for this little flower. So you can see pretty much is the same effect. So the little lavender or lupin. So very pretty flowers. And this concludes my watercoloring techniques for now. There's all kinds more techniques that we can do, and I'll try to show you in the future. But for now, we're going to be changing to another set this next week, and we're going to be doing something a little different. So I hope you guys have a great week, and I hope your Monday was just a little bit more marvelous. Thanks for joining me tonight. If you catch this later on YouTube, be sure to click subscribe and share with friends and like it. So I appreciate you coming, and I hope you guys have a great evening.